Well, time to make people mad again.
I didn't like your opinion.
I don't care!
Today we're talking about 5 metal albums I think are incredibly overrated, and 5 others I think deserve more credit in their place. And we're starting with Death Angel with Act 3. Now, I've mentioned this spicy take a few times now, but once again, I just do not care for this album at all. I see some people loving it and rating it among their favorites, and it leaves me wondering if we are even listening to the same album.
Get your hearing checked.
I appreciate the experimentation with different styles, but I just don't think that it really pans out and makes for a real mess overall. There are some good tracks here and there, and as far as the weirder stuff goes, I enjoy the funky, almost Primus energy of Discontinued, but the rest ranges from a chore to downright painful, as I have said before, especially Veil of Deception and A Room with a View. Personally, I'd rather give more love to Humanicide from 2019. When I rank the latest releases from most of the big thrash bands from the 80s, this easily found its way to the upper tiers. Humanicide makes for a truly ruthless stampede of chugging riffs and ferocious soloing, true to the cover art. I Came for Blood is a Motorhead-infused headbanger perfect for the pit, The Pact bringing more of a crossover vibe complete with fun backup vocals. Pretty damn consistent, maybe not their best, but front to back I think it's way more consistently engaging and energetic than Act 3 ever could be.
Am I so out of touch? No, it's the children who are wrong.
Now, before we get to my next pick, I am proud to say that this video is brought to you by Gothic. I have turned down a number of requests to advertise products over the years due to either shoddy quality or not fitting the brand. But for the last few weeks, I have genuinely enjoyed wearing and showing off some of Gothic's very metal-appropriate rings. Gothic is an online store that makes unique pieces of handmade jewelry appealing to a darker alternative aesthetic. They have a huge collection of products from rings and bracelets to pendants and earrings, all made with different materials and styles. It was hard to choose just a few, but here you can see some of my personal favorites in this Kraken skull, the vintage Viking rune, and my wife's favorite horror icon, Jason Voorhees. My daily go-to combo, though, has been the Viking rune chain spinner and the Tree of Life raven. High quality stuff that I plan on wearing much more in the future. Check the link in the description down below and get 25% off most products using the discount code TRENCH25. Thanks again to Gothic for sponsoring this video.
Ad's over.
Next up, we have Job for a Cowboy with Doom. This is their debut EP, and admittedly a monument of a deathcore release as far as the genre's timeline is concerned. Frankly though, I think it sounds pretty dated now in comparison to other releases from the same time like the Red Chord and Despised Icon, who also helped to set the stage before things really took off with Suicide Silence and Whitechapel soon after. Again, there are some fun moments, and it is one of those releases that I will say is very important, but it just doesn't really hold up. If you ask me, it's easily their worst release. Now compare that with Genesis. Their first full-length album, and the one that I think is extremely underrated. Huge step up here with much stronger production, better songwriting, and tighter performances, and I can definitely hear the influence from fellow Metal Blade label mates The Black Dahlia Murder. Nice concise runtime too at just over 30 minutes with no filler and lots of standout tracks like Bearing the Serpent's Lamb, Reduced to Mere Filth, Embedded, and Strings of Hypocrisy. And as I said in my Job for a Cowboy tier list, I think I love this album a lot for the same reasons that I still enjoy The Black Dahlia Murder's Unhallowed, and it's like special charm of that era, and seeing the lower fan ratings in comparison I think is unfortunate. Next up is Sodom with M16. Of the post-80s albums from this German band, this seems to be by far the most popular across places I've looked. And it definitely has some bangers in here, from Full Speed Ahead ones like I Am the War to the doomier stomp of Napalm in the Morning, great groove to the title track, and Lead Injection too. Remember, overrated doesn't necessarily mean bad. It mostly just means that I think it gets a little bit more credit than I think it deserves.
It's just fine.
So while I do think that this one is actually quite good, I don't think it's as good as I've heard some people talk about it. There are definitely some moments that lose me, and the songwriting could be a lot tighter. On the other hand, we have the vastly underappreciated Obsessed by Cruelty. Another particularly raw and gritty debut full-length that alongside the likes of early Sepultura was an inspiration to black metal, Euronymous even naming his record label after the track Death Like Silence. I just love its dark, cavernous sound and particularly wicked aesthetic, and yes, it's messy, it's a little ugly, it's gnarly, but that makes it right up my alley, just like I say with Morbid Visions. I love me some black and thrash, and this is one of the OGs. Next up, we have 6 Feet Under with Haunted. It continues to perplex me that people who hate this band about as much as I do still defend this album, and it's not without its catchier moments like Silent Violence, but it's still pretty low even when just considering the heaps of better death metal albums coming out in 1995. We're talking top-notch releases like Morbid Angel's Domination, Suffocation's Pierced From Within, Deicide's Once Upon the Cross, and Death's Symbolic, just to name a few. It's not unlistenable like some of their other stuff, but I do find myself getting pretty bored with most of this. And once more, I'm going to ride for the severely neglected Crypt of the Devil. It's still a 6 Feet Under album, but personally I'd say that alongside Unborn, it's one of their best. Thanks in part to guitar work from Brandon Ellis of the Black Dahlia Murder, mentioned again. Tracks like the opener Gruesome rip pretty damn hard. He brings their most shredding solos yet, and the bass tone is also pretty wicked. Love the pace change on Break the Cross in Half, another super heavy one in Lost Remains, great atmospheric leads on Compulsion to Brutalize, and another great closer in Eternal in Darkness. Not every song is on the same level, but considering just how many people seem to ride for Haunted, but give this one the cold shoulder, I challenge you to give them both a re-listen and reconsideration. Oh my god, I just defended a 6 Feet Under album.
What is happening?
Before we get to my last picks, just a reminder that if you're enjoying the video, be sure to hit the like button and comment below where do you agree, where do you disagree, and what are some other overrated and underrated albums that you would like to shout out. But my last pick for overrated albums is Judas Priest with Sad Wings of Destiny.
You need to leave!
Never turn your back on the ripoff.
All of my takes on the Judas Priest discography tier list, which you should also check out. This was probably the one people commented about the most in Descent. I won't deny that Rob here is definitely starting to come more into his own style with those high notes, but the instrumentation is still decidedly very classic rock, and I don't find the songwriting particularly memorable. If I want to listen to something like this, I'm much more likely to listen to like Led Zeppelin, personally. There are a few live mainstays on this album, like Victim of Changes, and The Ripper and Deceiver in particular feel like early blueprints for the true Priest sound in the way I look at it, but I was genuinely surprised at just how much people love this one. I had no idea. And if that's not spicy enough, I'm going to defend one of their most hated albums in Nostradamus. This double album is truly a mammoth to get through in terms of runtime, and the concept can at times come off as a little corny. But for all the shit that this album gets, I think it's at least one of the more interesting later albums, especially more so, I would say, than like Angel of Retribution, and it also strikes me just as more impressive than Sad Wings.
Move this man!
Now, your enjoyment and whether you agree with me or not on that will likely depend largely on whether you enjoy symphonic metal bands like Sabaton, which I unabashedly do. I do think it's way too long, they could trim it down quite a bit, but I still appreciate just how cinematic it feels, amazing production, and if Priest were going to jump genres again as they had leading up to this point, this style at least fits Rob's voice in a really great way, I think, and that title track is pretty fire. Y'all check out this playlist for more of my picks for most overrated metal albums, or check out this video for whatever YouTube wants to recommend you personally, but that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.